Today I wanted to showcase a game I came up with during my time off. It's a die roller space game based on an idea I got watching a video of a player's story about their time playing Elite Dangerous, the computer game. The player describes joining an in-game community called the Fuel Rats, and their goal was to deliver free rescue services to players who had run out of fuel deep in space. The Fuel Rats had a system in place where a dispatcher would receive calls and notify fellow Fuel Rats of the location. Rats would then race to the spot to get credit for the save. This sounded like a fun idea for a light space game. Let's dig in. To win the game, a player just needs to collect 3 of these dispatch cards. So for the green player, he's near Draconis, and this dispatch card, the location is Draconis, so he just needs 1 fuel dropped off at this transport to collect the card. So after I've played my little die game over here and moved myself to that system, as long as I have the required fuel on board, I can discard that and collect the card. And that will give me 1 out of 3 victory points. For a player to be able to move out of the system they're currently sitting in, they need to pull a system card. So I'm sitting in an orange colored star system. There are also red ones. And if I'm in the orange system, I follow the orange side of the card. So I get to collect 1 jump cube according to this. So 1 yellow cube also goes on my player board. And that just allows myself to travel on any yellow lines by spending that yellow cube. So back to this card. To move out of the system, I need 3 2s in my jump drive. So 1, 2, 3, those would have to be filled with a 2. So I'm going to keep that off to the side here, and the first action would be to roll all of my dice. So if I had any 2s, I would place those up in the jump drive. But since I got other options here, I'm going to need to input those into these different tools to be able to make 2s to put up into the jump drive. So let's explain what each of these tools does here. So if I was to place a 1 on that space, it gives me the option to add 1 or subtract 1 to any of my leftover dice. So let's say I wanted to add 1 to this, turn it into a 6. If I place a die in the stack 2 section, that allows me to double up actions. So let's say I've already played a 6 here and manipulated a die somewhere, flipping it over, whatever it was. Got my 2 up there, and I wanted to do the action again. As long as I have a 2 that I've just placed in here, I can stack and do it a second time by, inverting this die. Number 3 option allows me to re-roll 1 of my unspent dice. The number 4 allows me to make 1 wild, so I can select whatever side I want and place it up there. If I place a number 5 in here, I can re-roll any of my unspent dice altogether, or whatever number of dice I desire. And like I said with the 6, if I put it in there, I can invert 1 die, so I can flip it over. Let's say this was a 5 and I stick a 6 in here, I can invert it, turning it into a useful 2. If for whatever reason on this turn I can't roll any more die, I'm running out of options, play goes around to the next player, and when it comes back around to me, I can clear any of the tool dice and re-roll those along with my unspent dice. The ones that have to remain on the board are the jump drive dice. Once the player has fulfilled the card's requirements to jump out of that system, 3 2s, 3 2s, they will take their ship and they can jump along any line connected to where they're at. So I could go this way towards Draconis to try to pick up that card, or for some reason I wanted to head up to Tori, I could decide to go that direction. Remember, yellow lines can only be traveled by discarding the yellow jump cube, playing the little mini game for whatever system I'm in, and then traveling there. Difference between orange and red systems is that orange pretty much is going to give you a simple puzzle of 3 of one kind, to solve. Red ones, they have a secondary effect where sometimes it'll capture your first of that number. So if I roll a 3, it's going to get stuck on the die or the card, and then I have to roll my 3 6s into the jump drive to move on. There's also another type of red card where it'll actually block your actions here. Let's see if I can find one. So this one here blocks your number 3 action. So if that one comes up, I can't use my number 3 action. I place a red block there for the entire time I'm in this system. Also, one thing I forgot to mention on the different colored systems, if you're in a blue system, you just need to roll 3 of any kind into your jump drive. In the event a player is out of fuel cubes, they can refuel at any of these bright stars. So you play your mini game, you fly to one of the systems, and then you have to take 3 dice and, rolling 1 time per turn, attempt to get an exact 7 out of either 2 or 3 dice. So here I could combine the 3 and the 4, that's an exact 7, and I'd be able to refuel my ship. You can only refuel up to 1 cube. The only time you get multiple cubes is if you find one in your system cards. If a player is attempting to refuel a ship that requires 2 fuel and they only have 1 in their player card, so he's right here, he'll take the first fuel and actually reserve the dispatch card, keeping anybody else off of it until he can finish the job. And he would do that by traveling to a nearby star, a bright one, and refueling, collecting another fuel cube, and then flying himself back to the location to collect the card. Another additional rule is these 2 purple systems here are wormholes. If you cross into that system, you're going to roll a die, and if it's a 5+, it will forcefully transport you to the other system. That can be a bad thing if you're just trying to get somewhere nearby and you've got to cross through that system. But it can also be a useful thing if you actually want to take a shortcut. You can sit there attempting to roll 5+ on every turn to try to get sucked into the wormhole, and then take a short trip to wherever you're going. That's it, folks. This game takes about 5 minutes to teach and 45 minutes to play. It's extremely rewarding when you take a bad roll and find a way to manipulate the dice into a fully charged jump drive in just 1 turn. The thrill of the race is quite exciting when multiple players are frantically trying to charge their drives on the last jump to a stranded ship. Let me know what you think, and thanks for tuning in. See ya.